Was hat es mit diesem Case-File auf sich? In truth, I would like to have thought I could have predicted the booby-trapped chest. But it caught me completely off guard. I was very neatly the late consulting detective Sherlock Holmes. I'm sorry, Hurley. So you mean this autopsy report really is? Yes, I took it from the lab, even though I knew it was very important. Was there something in it that troubled you, Iris? Not exactly something that troubled me. Something I'd been looking for. When I saw this report, when I saw the writing in it, I knew it was Daddy's. Oh no. Oh no. The writing. Your father's writing. What do you really mean? Iris, it must be something that's hard for her to talk about. Forgive me for interrupting, my dear fellows. Mr. Sholmes, what is it? I feel as though the poor unconscious gentleman on the settee has been somewhat forgotten. Ah, father! Perhaps we should find our guest somewhere more peaceful to rest. Mr. Naruhodo. Yes? Would you be so kind as to lend him your bed? We must do our very best to make him comfortable, I feel. Oh, yes, of course. I'll help you carry him up. So will I. No, I can manage alone, thank you. You have tea to enjoy. We wouldn't want Iris Brew to stew. Because there's no better way to make the professor comfortable than dragging him upstairs like a trunk. I wonder, perhaps it was deliberate. Maybe Mr. Sholmes is making himself scarce to give Iris a chance to talk more freely. We must use this opportunity to talk with Iris and find out what's going on. Okay, Iris, don't spill my beans. The beans, your daddy. Would you like to tell us about it, Iris? About your father? I'm sure I told you before, didn't I? That Daddy used to be Hurley's partner. Yes, and that notes about all the cases they solved together are kept inside that metal chest. Aber Mikotoba hat doch gesagt, dass Wilson, Dr. John H. Wilson nie der Partner von Sherlock gewesen ist, oder nicht? Habe ich das falsch in Erinnerung? Ich meine nicht. The notes about all the cases they solved together are kept inside the metal chest. That's right. Hurley told me, you see? He said that Daddy's somewhere far away now, so we can't meet. That's one way of describing it. Then, when I secretly unlocked the chest and read through the papers inside, I started to build up a picture in my head of what Daddy must be like. Well, that's only natural. You are just like any other girl of your age. I read that Daddy was a professor of medical science, so I studied and took my degree too. Well, that's only natural, I suppose. In that respect, you're not quite like any other girl of your age though. True. But there was one thing that I could never find out. Daddy's name. Ah! His name wasn't anywhere in any of the notes that he made about his work with Hurley. But then one day... That's what happened, is it? When you saw that this autopsy report, you finally managed to work it out. Is that why? Yes. So it was the handwriting in the report that caught her eye. The autopsy report. When I saw the writing on that report, I could hardly believe it. I know that handwriting, I thought to myself. Because it was the same as the writing you'd seen on your father's case notes. Exactly. I was desperate to compare the two properly. I needed to see them side by side. I asked the doctor in the laboratory, but I was told I couldn't take the report away. And even worse, I was told that it was the first and last time we'd be allowed even to look at it there. So I decided to steal it. When I compared the autopsy report with the case notes I had here, there was no doubt. The handwriting was exactly the same. It was Daddy's. And the signature of the coroner at the bottom of the autopsy report. Read Dr. John H. Wilson. So that's how I finally found out. I learned Daddy's name at last. I see. Ever since then, I've called myself Iris Wilson. And that's also when I had the brilliant idea of writing stories all about Daddy's exciting times with Hurley. I decided there and then that I'd write the adventures of Sherlock Holmes. Oh, Iris, I had no idea the stories had quite such a deep personal significance for you. I can see why the autopsy report was so important to her now. And why she was prepared to break the law to get her hands on it. Okay. I must apologize, Iris. This is really all my fault. Hurley, I made a promise, you see, that until the time was right, I'd keep the details about your father a secret. I know, I've been very naughty. I take the autopsy report back to Dr. Gowrie and apologize, I promise. Yes, we'll go together, I think. Then, let me look after it for you until we get there. Clint's autopsy report has been entered into the court records. The autopsy report of the final victim of the infamous professor. The report was authored by Dr. John H. Wilson. Das gucken wir uns dann gleich mal an. Clint's autopsy report. Name, victim name Clint Van Zieks, male. Coroner John H. Wilson, age 33, nationality British. Time of death 31st May, between 9 p.m. and midnight. Observations. Death from a single stab wound to the heart. Other superficial external wounds indicative of a duel. Okay. Additional notes. Recent scarlet ink stains visible on the little and ring fingers of the right hand, but no document and corresponding ink was found. Scarlet ist doch Scharlach, also Scharlachrot. Okay. Und autopsy findings. Vital evidence recovered from the victim's stomach during autopsy. Credit to Inspector Gregson for petitioning so doggedly for the autopsy procedure. No internal trauma noted anywhere in the body. Aber was war das wichtige Beweisstück, das eindeutige Beweisstück? The vital evidence. I must go and water my herbs, I think. I'll see you all later. Poor Iris. She must be feeling awful. I know Mr. Sholmes is here for her, but still. Ah! Well, how? What's the meaning of this, Mr. Sholmes? Mr. Sholmes? Oh, dear me. So, you've noticed, I see. But that would mean... What on earth's the matter, Mr. Sato? You've turned as white as a sheet. It's his autopsy report, Mr. Naruhodo. The one from 10 years ago. The writing isn't Dr. Wilson's at all. Okay. Huh? What do you mean? How could you possibly know that? Because I know this writing very well. 9. This writing. It's my father's. Was bedeutet das? Wenn das jetzt... Hä? Ist Susatos... Ist Susatos Vater der eigentliche John H. Wilson? What? Professor Mikotobas? Indeed, it's true. And now you know, my dear fellows. No, I don't know anything. What on earth does all of this mean, Mr. Sholmes? Because the idea that's slowly forming in my mind, it's just too extraordinary to believe. Please, you have to explain. Converse. The autopsy report writing. So, this autopsy report was actually penned by Professor Mikotoba then. But that makes no sense. It's not possible, surely. Not possible, my dear fellow. Pray, take a deep breath and think again. Yes, you're right. In some ways, it actually makes a great deal of sense. It does? 10 years ago, his grandfather returned to Japan after his extended study tour in Japan, in Britain. And prior to his return, where was Dr. Mikotoba engaged? Ah, of course! He was an assistant in Dr. Wilson's laboratory, learning about forensic science. And as an assistant, he would have aided with the dissection work, making detailed notes, which would be assembled into the full autopsy report. Once the work was complete, the head coroner would check the contents and put a signature on the documents. In other words, the only writing of Dr. Wilson's in the report would be a signature at the end. I see. So Iris got the wrong end of the stick. Aber warum dachte Iris dann, dass es dieselbe Handschrift wie in den Stories? She saw that and assumed the whole report had been written by Dr. John H. Wilson. Which is very understandable, of course. What a complicated situation. The details of Clint's autopsy report have been updated in the court record. The report from the autopsy of the professor's final victim. It's signed by Dr. John H. Wilson, who carried out the procedure, though Professor Mikotoba actually penned the report. Your partner. Thinking about it, most of what we know about you, Mr. Sholmes, comes from the published stories of your exploits. Yes, The Adventures of Sherlock Sholmes, written by Iris. And we really have no way of knowing what's fact and what's fiction. Most troubling for you, my dear fellow, I'm sure. So what about the supposed partner of yours? Did he really exist or not? Ah, you've come straight to the point, I see. And please come straight to the answer. I believe Iris explained it in one of her installments. He was a trusted comrade, and the only person I could truly have called a friend. And did this partner of yours truly make a record of all your cases? Are his notes really stored inside that metal chest? Absolutely, my dear madam. Absolutely. So, where's your partner now? We rarely meet. You see, he lives on the other side of the world. But if this autopsy report and the records of all your old cases were penned by the same hand, and if the autopsy report was written, though not signed, by your famous partner, there would be only one logical conclusion. Pray, impress me. Your partner would have to be Eugene Mikotoba. In other words, Miss Susato's father. Upon my word, Mr. Naruhodo. Yes? You are coming along wonderfully. You have hit upon the method at last. You finally grasped the art of deduction. You mean to say... Allow me to introduce you to my great friend and partner, Mikotoba. Nein. Alles klar. Hä, aber... Heißt das dann, er ist auch der Vater von Iris? Nein, oder? Nein, das kann nicht sein. Professor Mikotoba. Aber er hat was gesagt, dass Wilson nie mit Turlock zusammengearbeitet hat. Sholmes und Mikotoba. Does this mean that you're the real Dr. Wilson? No, my dear. I'm still my old self, Eugene Mikotoba, your father. Oh, of course. This is obviously too much for Susato-san to take in. I must say, though, how my old friend has attained worldwide celebrity as a great mystery solver is the greatest mystery of all. I still remember the first time we met. Ah, pray remind me, when was it again, Mikotoba? 16 years ago, Sholmes. Ah, yes, quiet, 16 years ago. I just arrived from Japan with Shiro und Kenshin. Wie alt sind die beiden, ist die Frage. Also er ist 34 und Mikotoba ist 43, okay. I just arrived from Japan with Shiro and Kenshin. I was in search of lodgings close to the hospital. Some comfortable rooms at a reasonable price. But rents are devilishly high in that particular area. That's right, so I decided I needed someone to share lodgings and the expense, and was fortunate enough to be introduced to Sholmes, who found himself in a familiar situation, similar. I was a callow fellow back then, a mere shadow of the great detective you see before you now. I was working at the hospital's chemical laboratory at the time, indulging my curiosities for little gain. And the situation of our cohabitation led to us pursuing cases together, you see? Okay. Just away from Shiro and Genshin, I was in search of lodgings. Okay. That's right. Need someone to share lodgings. Okay. Und hat im Krankenhaus gearbeitet, im chemischen Labor. And the situation of our cohabitation led us to pursuing cases together, you see. Hard to believe. It was a mere 6 years. We had a great many adventures. But in the last year of Mikotoba's stay in Britain, that most infamous of cases presented itself. Oh, deswegen hat er auch Susato zurückgerufen, weil er genau wusste von diesem Fall. The case which you've become rather familiar yourself, the professor killing. After the trial, Shiro and I were summoned back home. Hardly surprising, given the circumstances. So there you have it. And as you know, all the details recorded by my trusty chronicler remain in that metal chest. This is just amazing. Professor Mikotoba really is Mr. Sholmes' famous partner. Father. Goodness, my dear, what a cutting look. As your daughter, I'm very proud to learn that you are the great detective's great partner. But nevertheless, there's another mystery that I really must ask you to explain now. And that is... You know very well what it is. The unresolved matter of Iris' father. Ah, of course, I'd almost forgotten about that one. Ja, warum, wenn er der Partner ist, warum hat Wilson dann die Geschichten geschrieben, beziehungsweise unter seinen Namen schreiben lassen? Warum hat er das alles notiert als Wilson? I should have seen this coming, I suppose. Iris' father. Iris told us that all the notes about the great detective's adventures that are in that metal chest were written by her father. Isn't that correct, Mr. Sholmes? That is indeed what I told young Iris. But if you're Mr. Sholmes' partner, father, and you wrote all those case notes, then Iris' father must be you. Ah! Upon my word, Miss Susato. You are coming along wonderfully as well. You too have hit upon the method at last. You finally grasp the art of deduction. What? What you've always told me, father, is that my mother died when I was born 16 years ago, and you left me in grandmother's care while you embarked on your study tour of Britain, and I've always accepted that. But all this about Iris. Oh, there it is, Susato-san's ice-cold stare. No! Now hold on a minute. It was very complicated. I mean, it's really not what you think. Then perhaps you'd like to explain exactly what it is. There it is now. The eyes go from ice cold to wet hot, just before she... No, really, you've got the wrong end of the stick, Sholmes. Say something. Sholmes, say something, man. Also ist Iris Susato-sans Halbschwester? Zumindest? Weil... Oder ist die Mutter... War die Mutter dann auch in... Aber Iris sieht ja nicht japanisch aus. Susato-san sieht man ja ein bisschen anders, die asiatische Herkunft, aber Iris? Ja, nicht so, oder? Ist mir bisher, also hätte ich bisher nicht gesagt. That's quite enough, my three fellows. Mr. Sholmes, when did you get all dressed up? Whilst I don't like to interrupt this exciting exploration of the past, Mikotoba and I have an urgent matter that requires a short excursion. But it's very late, Mr. Sholmes. Where must you go? Why, my dear madam? Is that not obvious? My partner and I must pursue our natural enemies. So, get your coat, Mikotoba. The game is afoot. But Sholmes! I really must give Susato a full explanation, I think. Later, my dear fellow, later. Our carriage awaits downstairs already. You haven't changed one iota, have you? I mean, really, I visit our home after 10 long years, and when I open the chest in a fit of nostalgia, I quite inexplicably pass out. And as if that wasn't enough, when I eventually regain consciousness, I'm plunged straight into all this. Father, please, go with Mr. Sholmes now. Können wir kurz anmerken, wie cool die Musik gerade ist? Im Hintergrund? Go with Mr. Sholmes now. Well, I've no doubt that whatever happened, you were acting in everyone's best interest. I trust you, completely. Susato. And sending the great detective and his great partner off on renewed adventures together is more than I could have hoped for in my wildest dreams. Very well then, we'll speak again later. So, I believe your own work is done for the day. I wish you the best of luck for tomorrow. Yes, Naruhodo, good luck and better, and in reaching a decision. A decision? About whether to go back or to Japan, I suppose. Stimmt, das war ja der Gefallen, den er von uns eingefordert hatte.
So much happened that day that I barely knew what to do with myself. It would only be later that I'd come to realize how amidst the chaos I'd unleashed were all the clues I needed to finally unearth the truth.
Hört sich ziemlich zuversichtlich an.
And that all the turmoil was necessary to give me the resolve to see everything through.
Gänsehaut. So resolve, die Entschlossenheit. End! Okay, es ist wirklich ein Zweiteiler. End. The Legendary Pair awarded. Ja, okay, cooles Ende. Mikotoba ist der wahre Partner von Mr. Sholmes. Okay. Okay, speichern wir. Final. Da steht da Final. The Resolve of Ryunosuke Naruhodo. Die Entschlossenheit von Ryunosuke Naruhodo. Alter, bei dem Titel kriege ich schon Gänsehaut. Bei dem Titel alleine kriege ich schon Gänsehaut. Holy shit. Gucken wir uns das Titelbild an. Final Chapter. The Resolve of Ryunosuke Naruhodo. Junge, Junge. Das ist das Final Chapter. Danach haben wir das Spiel durch. For good. Danach werden wir wahrscheinlich... Danach ist die Geschichte von Uyonosuke Naruhodo abgeschlossen. Danach gibt es gibt ja keinen dritten Teil von The Great Ace Attorney. Es gibt ja keinen dritten Teil. Deswegen bin ich gespannt, was da jetzt auf uns zukommt. Wie alles zusammengeführt wird. Oh Gott. The Resolve of Uyonosuke Naruhodo. Die Entschlossenheit von Uyonosuke Naruhodo. Oh mein Gott. Deswegen heißt das Spiel auch so. Es heißt The Great Ace Attorney 2 Resolve. Entschlossenheit. Und all der Turmoil, die Unruhen, waren notwendig für seine Entschlossenheit, die Wahrheit zu finden. Boah. Wenn der Titel das hält, was er verspricht, so wie Resolve of Uyonosuke Naruhodo, das finde ich schon einen sehr interessanten Titel. Am Ende, oh Gott, was wir da wohl bekommen, was wir wohl am Ende bekommen, das wird krass, Leute. Ich glaube, das wird krass, was der Name schon verspricht. The Resolve of Uyonosuke Naruhodo. Damn. Ja, okay. Kurz nochmal zu diesem Fall hier. Interessant, dass es daraus ein Zweiteiler gemacht wurde jetzt. Die Exposition ist auf jeden Fall gut. Barock als Angeklagter. Eigentlich ein Classic Giveaway für einen finalen Ace Attorney Fall, dass der Staatsanwalt, der sonst immer da war, angeklagt wurde, was mich zuerst überrascht hat. Das ist in Episode 4 schon passiert. Dann auch ein cooler Turn, dass, weil man einen neuen Staatsanwalt natürlich braucht, dass Kazuma als Staatsanwalt eintritt, nachdem er seine glorreiche Rückkehr in der letzten Episode feierte, in der dritten. Die Great Departed Soul, das Stichwort. Und ja, interessant, dass der Professor-Case auch noch weiter aufgeführt wird, dass der Vigil scheinbar auch nicht, er sagt ja, er war es nicht, aber er irgendwie gekündigt wurde, nachdem der Professor entkommen konnte. Und der Professor ist irgendwie entkommen durch, dadurch, dass er schon im Sarg lag und irgendwie für tot erklärt wurde von Dr. Seiss, aber gar nicht tot war. Und dann wurde er wenig später erschossen von wem auch immer. Ich denke mal, die Antwort davon kriegen wir dann in Episode 5. Und ansonsten, was kann man ansonsten noch sagen? Genau. Auch interessant mit Clint van Zieks, dass da der Mikoto war, der die Autopsie gemacht hat, dass Dr. Wilson das quasi noch unterschrieben hat und dass Mikoto auf jeden Fall der Partner von Sherlock Holmes ist. Entschuldigung. Und vielleicht sogar der Vater von Iris. Das wurde jetzt nicht klargestellt. Wäre auf jeden Fall krass, wenn Susato und Iris Schwestern oder Halbschwestern wären. Würde auf jeden Fall gut passen. Auf jeden Fall. Und was kam denn noch davor? Die Zeugen, die Rothaarigen, die Red-Tailed League, war auch interessant. Oh! Wir haben ganz vergessen, den Koffer von Tobias Gregson zu untersuchen. Weil wir gleich vom Hund angegriffen worden sind. Naja, ich glaube, dafür bleibt uns noch genug Zeit im nächsten Fall dann. Und ja, am Ende das Ganze mit Iris. Sie weiß immer noch nicht, dass Dr. John Wilson tot ist. Wenn es überhaupt ihr echter Vater ist. Das ist jetzt auch zweifelhaft. Oh Gott, oh Gott. Ja, okay. Gut, dann werden wir sehen, ob wir in der Entschlossenheit von Uyonosuke Naruhodo auch einen Freispruch für Barock van Zieks finden, weil der wahre Mörder dahinter ist. Ich finde auch immer noch, ich möchte ihn jetzt nicht als Mörder dahinstellen, aber ich finde immer noch, der Lord Strongheart verheimlicht auch noch was. Herlock verheimlicht auch noch was über Kazumas Tod, auf jeden Fall. Über Kazumas vermeintlichen Tod. Und Lord Strongheart wird nur shadiger mit der Zeit. Wird nur irgendwie shadiger. Und ansonsten, ja, mal gucken, was die Entschlossenheit von Uyonosuke Naruhodo uns bringt. Ich bin sehr gespannt. Aber das mache ich nicht mehr heute, sondern ich werde es morgen durchspielen. Wir haben es jetzt schon wieder 2:15. Und morgen werde ich dann das Final Chapter durchspielen. The Resolve of Ryunosuke Naruto. Finde ich auch ein interessantes Konzept, dass sie das aufteilen in Zweiteiler. Ich hätte gedacht, jetzt vielleicht, als mir Gedanken kam, okay, vielleicht ist es ein Zweiteiler, dass da ein bisschen mehr ein Cliffhanger ist, aber scheinbar nicht, es ist so genau ein Cliffhanger. Ne? Natürlich, wir wissen nicht, wie es ausgeht, aber ich dachte, jetzt passiert noch irgendwas Krasses, was mich jetzt noch weiterspielen lässt. Aber so kann ich erstmal beruhigt einschlafen. Ryunosuke hört sich gerade auch ziemlich zuversichtlich an. Und dann morgen ganz entspannt weiterspielen. Gut, ich verabschiede mich fürs Erste. Vielen Dank fürs Zuschauen, vielen Dank fürs dabei sein und ja, wir sehen uns dann morgen wieder, wo wir den finalen Fall von The Great Ace Attorney Chronicles und den finalen Fall von The Great Ace Attorney 2 Resolve anfangen. Das finale Kapitel in der Saga von Ryunosuke Naruto. We've come a long way. We've come a long way auf jeden Fall. Aber dazu dann mehr im letzten Fall. Da werde ich dann, denke ich mal, zum Ende hin ein paar abschließende Worte finden, je nachdem, wie das Ganze jetzt ausgeht. Ich bedanke mich fürs Zuschauen. Ich kann mir nicht mal sprechen und ich bedanke mich fürs Dabeisein und wir sehen uns dann, wie gesagt, morgen 18 Uhr wieder. Haut rein, bis dann, tüdelü und ja, Einspruch.